A pufferfish does not look like the kind of animal that could end a dinner. It looks slow, round, and almost harmless. But in Japan, fugu is not treated like ordinary seafood. It belongs to a world of specialist restaurants, careful rules, and trust. Because the danger is not in the way the dish looks. The dangerous part happens before the food ever reaches the table. Some of the most toxic parts can include organs like the liver and ovaries, which contains tetrodotoxin, so the chef has to remove them without letting the poison touch the edible meat. By the time fugu is served, it can look delicate and almost peaceful. That calm little plate only exists because the fish was handled correctly. People are not just paying for the taste. They are paying for the person behind the knife. If tetrodotoxin poisoning happens, the body can lose control of breathing, and there is no simple antidote that instantly fixes it. That is why fugu sits at the top of the list. It is beautiful food, but it leaves almost no room for mistakes. The deathcap mushroom is scary because it does not announce itself. It can grow quietly under trees, near paths, or in patches of grass. To someone who is not trained, it may look like something worth picking, and by the time it is in the basket, the mistake has already started. Deathcaps contain amatoxins, which can attack the liver. Cooking will not make them safe. The meal itself might not feel unusual at all. Hours later, it can start like ordinary food poisoning. Vomiting, diarrhea, stomach pain, weakness. Then comes the cruel part. The person may seem to improve, but inside the body, the liver may still be taking damage. That delay is why deathcap poisoning is so dangerous. A quick photo check is not enough to identify wild mushrooms safely, and deathcaps are not limited to one tiny corner of the world. If you are not trained, the safest choice is to leave it where it is. You might just know it by a different name. Yuca, manioc, or the secret ingredient behind tapioca pudding, cassava. This isn't some rare, exotic culinary dare. Cassava is a daily lifeline for over 800 million people across the globe. But hiding inside this ordinary starchy root is a lethal chemical weapon, cyanide. Cassava naturally produces toxins that, when eaten raw, your body converts into hydrogen cyanide gas, effectively shutting down your cell's ability to use oxygen. The difference between a nutritious meal and a fatal dose comes down to a meticulous, ancestral science: peeling, grating, soaking, and fermenting. These aren't just cooking steps. It is a literal detoxification process. By the time it hits the plate, the poison is completely gone, leaving behind a perfectly safe staple. The real danger strikes during times of drought or famine. When severe food shortages force people to rush the processing just to survive, the results are devastating. Chronic exposure to poorly processed cassava leads to Konzo, a terrifying, irreversible neurological disease that causes permanent paralysis in the legs. This next food looks like it belongs in a luxury tropical travel ad. But beneath its beautiful, bright exterior lies a strict biological deadline. In Jamaica, this isn't a culinary gimmick. When prepared correctly, ackee is the star of the island's beloved savory national dish, ackee and saltfish. But ackee has one non-negotiable rule that you do not play with. Pick this fruit too early, and it becomes a chemical hazard. Unripe ackee is packed with a potent toxin called hypoglycin A. If ingested, it triggers what is medically known as Jamaican vomiting sickness, forcing your blood sugar to plummet to near-fatal levels, which can lead to seizures, coma, or worse. The only defense is patience. The fruit must yawn, meaning it has to open naturally on the tree, exposed to the sun, which safely neutralizes the toxin. Even then, the prep is surgical. You can only eat the creamy yellow flesh, called the aril. The black seeds and the red rind are highly toxic and must be completely discarded. Deep beneath the Arctic ice lives one of the oldest vertebrates on Earth, the Greenland shark. They can live for over 400 years, but if you tried to eat one fresh, it would be your last meal. In Iceland, this creature is the source of hakarl, a traditional dish famous worldwide for its notoriously intense, eye-watering ammonia smell. Because Greenland sharks live in freezing, high-pressure depths, they don't have a urinary system. Instead, their flesh is saturated with high concentrations of urea and trimethylamine oxide. These natural antifreeze compounds are highly toxic to humans. Eating the meat raw or fresh causes severe neurotoxic effects, leading to a state of extreme intoxication, convulsions, and potential death. To make it edible, survival required a bizarre but brilliant preservation science. First, the shark is buried under gravel to press out the toxic bodily fluids. Next, the meat is hung to dry for months in open-air sheds. The wind and fermentation slowly break down the lethal toxins, turning a biological hazard into a cured Icelandic delicacy. The resulting ammonia smell is legendary, but it's actually a sign of safety. It proves the toxins have successfully gassed out of the meat. Bitter almonds are unsettling because they look identical to the snack sitting in your pantry. They look safe, familiar, and completely harmless. But the almonds you buy at the grocery store are sweet almonds, a domesticated, mutated crop bred specifically not to poison you. Raw bitter almonds are a completely different story. Raw bitter almonds contain massive concentrations of a cyanogenic glycoside called amygdalin. When chewed, enzymes in the nut and your digestive tract break amygdalin down into hydrogen cyanide. The danger here isn't a choking hazard or spoilage, it is direct chemical asphyxiation. Consuming just 6 to 10 raw bitter almonds can cause severe poisoning in an adult, and as few as 50 can be fatal. For a small child, even a couple can kill. So why don't people collapse after eating almond croissants or amaretto? Because heat processing, roasting, and distillation volatilize and leach out the cyanide, making commercial extracts and pastes safe to eat. You don't need to panic over flavored treats. But it is a stark reminder of nature's warning. Looking completely harmless doesn't mean something can't kill you. At first glance, this classic Korean dish looks like a fresh, simple seafood appetizer. But look closer and the pieces are actively moving. This is sanakji, a dish served so fast that the octopus is literally fighting back on your plate. Unlike the poisons on this list, there's no venom here. The movement comes from an extraordinary nervous system. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are in its arms, allowing the severed suction cups to react long after death. The danger is purely physical. Those suction cups can still latch onto the wall of your throat or esophagus, creating a seal that completely blocks your airway and causes sudden choking. That's why safety relies on 2 rules: coating the pieces in slippery sesame oil to break their grip, and chewing every bite until the suction cups are completely crushed. In South Korea, sanakji causes deaths every year. To prevent this, strict dining rules exist. Chefs must slice the tentacles exceptionally small. Rhubarb is a classic dessert favorite, featured in pies, jams, and crumbles all over the world. But this garden plant has a strict, non-negotiable rule. The tart, red stalk goes in the pie. The broad green leaves belong straight in the trash. Rhubarb leaves contain dangerously high concentrations of soluble oxalic acid and corrosive oxalate, compounds designed by nature as a toxic defense mechanism against herbivores. Once ingested, oxalic acid binds directly to calcium in your bloodstream, forming insoluble calcium oxalate crystals. In severe cases, this triggers systemic poisoning, severe metabolic disruption, and acute kidney damage. Fortunately, fatal poisonings are rare because you would need to eat several pounds of raw leaves to reach a lethal dose. But eating even a small amount can cause burning, vomiting, and organ stress. Rhubarb isn't dangerous because we make dessert out of it. It's dangerous when people confuse the edible stalk with the toxic foliage.